Nicky Beauchamp
I'm
style.
not letting you go topless. Oh, nice tan, Matty. Where are you? Somewhere nice?
Well, Dan, I thought I'd make the most of the international break, of course, which I didn't fully appreciate when I booked it, but now seems absolute genius. I have not mentioned that to my wife, but the timing could not have been better. I'm in sunny Corfu. It's looking a bit lovely today. It's my penultimate day, so I'm feeling a bit sad. But lovely to join you. And obviously, even though I'm on a break, even though I'm on holiday, I'm always thinking OUFC down.
Listener, with Matty channeling his Nicky Beauchamp vibe, we're doing a two-part special this week.
That's right. So in part one, we're going to just have a quick recap on the transfer window and stuff like that before I go for my midday beer here in Corfu.
And in part two, which I'm recording later while Matt is off at some beach party or something, we've got a really special guest, someone whose side project is actually one of the best things about being an Oxford United fan and something that makes my life so much easier making this podcast.
Yeah, it's truly, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Sounds great, Dan. Let's run that stick.
The big man with a big goal on the big occasion.
Well, welcome to episode 4, season 2 of You Are My Oxford podcast, the poolside episode.
Yes, poolside for some, Matt. It's absolutely tipping it down here in North London at the minute. So,
yeah, sorry to hear that. Well, Dan, not too much to catch up on, I guess, since the last episode. But I guess the really, major news, the departure of our captain, Elliot Moore.
Yeah, Matt, I was listening back to the last episode, something I know you do a lot of. You're always listening back to our previous episodes. But there was a moment that you hinted that a big shock was coming. Did you know something?
I think it was just something in my waters, Dan. I don't know. I think it was something that someone mentioned at the game, that there was rumblings in the dressing room that something big was going to happen. So, yeah, I won't say I had that kind of club insider knowledge. It's just my Mystic Meg vibes.
Mystic Matt, we're going to call you from now on. He's such a reliable, he's just been such a feature of our team for the past 4, 5 seasons. And I think with Elliot Moore, we kind of forgot how good he was. And I think it's always slightly overshadowed. There always seems to be like a bigger and better name next to him. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I'm going to read out some of the centre-backs he played alongside. On his debut, he played alongside Rob Dickie. The first game of the next season, he played alongside Rob Atkinson. Then obviously Kieran Brown came in and turned into the colossal defender that he is. And then Hillick. All the time there was someone who just seemed to steal his limelight. And yet he was always just Mr. Reliable. He was always just consistently excellent for us.
You've reeled off like loads of incredible centre-backs there, but he was a present along that whole time, right? Absolutely Mr. Dependable. Maybe a bit of an underrated footballer as well, if I'm honest, because of how tall he is and, how great he is in the air. But actually, decent and very composed on the ball. Really used to like watching him, not the greatest pace, but, popped up with a big goal from time to time. Who can forget, obviously, the Peterborough semi-final. But, yeah, I mean, like you say, 4, 5, 6 years of him kind of been there. And, I think, has the writing been on the wall? Not quite. This is a shock. This is a big surprise. And I thought even if he wasn't maybe that number one centre-back this season, how things work with injuries and all this, Kieran Brown coming back, etc. Davis, we don't, do we know how fit he is? You thought he'd still get game time. So I'm a bit surprised.
I must admit, towards the end of last season and the Portsmouth game and, just the Portsmouth game I've seen play this year, I just thought a little bit the Championship was stretching him. And I think I could very, like you just said, I think we could see him becoming like a backup. And I guess basically at his age, he doesn't want to be a backup. What's the fun in sitting on the bench all the time when he could be playing? I don't think he's joined another club, certainly not at the time of recording, but, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he does pretty soon. I guess just, at that age, you don't want to be a backup, right? And fair play to him and fair play to the club, I think, for letting him go and giving him a chance to start something else.
Yeah, allowing him to go. You're right. Where do you think he'll turn up?
Absolutely no idea, Matt. Unlike some, I am not in the know.
I'm going to predict a League One team who want to get promotion.
In other news, and this is going to disappoint our army of Indonesian followers, our millions of Indonesian followers, Marcelino Ferdinand has gone out on loan to Slovak side, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Tenchin?
I'll give you that one.
No great surprise, I guess.
No great surprise, but I wonder, in the back of my mind, what was the idea with this whole project? I mean, are we still hoping that he will turn into a championship level player? You know, are we still hoping that? I don't know. How long has he been at the club now? 2 years, and I mean, he came on against Swansea towards the end of last season. He doesn't seem to have, I don't know, bulked up as a player. Like, are we expecting him to be something? But then when he goes away for Indonesian internationals, he seems to really turn it on, and a fantastic player. So I don't know. Every manager who's come in never really fully believed in him and just think he's like a club signing for the greater good of getting Indonesian followers and getting that kind of base of fans over in the Far East. I don't know. I'd love to know, what the thinking was. But I guess, one thing to add is that obviously there's a human being there, and we've joked about him a bit on this podcast, and Oxford United fans generally have joked about it. But he's a young footballer. What is he now? 22, 23. He wants to be playing football every week. He wants to be scoring goals. He wants to be building his part of something, and that hasn't quite happened at Oxford. So I hope someone in the club is has his best intentions at heart, and I hope that his career progresses to where it should be, and whether that's with Oxford United or with Tenchin or with another European club or whatever. I hope it all works out for him.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. We've also got, since we last recorded, a new signing to fill that gaping hole at number 10. We really should have had Theo on to talk about this, because he was talking about the gaping hole at number 10. But Matt, you know all about Philip Krastev, because if I know you, you're spending your holiday sunbathing, acquiring that Nicky Banger look, and you're also looking into his XG and his stats.
I'm seeking out Bulgarians around the pool to try and get some insight. Is he Bulgarian?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Think so, yeah. So I've obviously been seeking out Bulgarians and just shouting the name Krastev at the top of my voice around the pool to see if anyone responds. No one's come back to me yet. No, but in all seriousness, what I love about this moment in time in the Championship is that every club is just taking a punt on really skillful-looking players who play in the kind of an Eastern European, maybe Croatian, might be Bulgarian, might be Austrian league, and they could be absolute, gems of signings. Or they could turn to absolute nothing, and you just never really know. He looks good on his highlights reel. I'll give him that. And as you say, we are missing that kind of number 10 player. But I just wonder, my thinking, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on the transfer window as a whole. Now it's all done and dusted. But my thinking is our first 11 potentially looks very, very strong now.
Certainly looks stronger than the team that we put out on the first day of the season. I think, as you just mentioned, there's still so many unknowns, and I think it's really easy at the minute to get either excited by names or, nonplussed by these new signings. As you said, we don't know anything about them at all, and how Gary Rowett turns them into a team, I think, will be the acid test. And I've got absolutely no idea. People don't come to this podcast, Matt, for deep insight and knowledge.
One thing I do want to raise, though, since last time we spoke, was I think we both said that BDK had a great game. What I hadn't fully realised, have you watched Lancashire's disallowed goal in the last game, the 2-2 draw against Cobb?
Yeah, I think I've seen it back, yeah.
Okay, have you seen BDK's ball to him?
I'll watch it again.
Honestly, it is different level. And I'm like, if we can have a bit more of that this season, that would be fantastic. I've also watched Cameron Brannigan's free kick on repeat whilst out here in Corfu, and it just gets better with every watch as well. I'm finding newer and different angles to watch it, and it is really a thing of beauty. But yeah, have a look. For anyone listening, try and have a look at Will Lancashire's disallowed goal. But the ball from BDK, it's a cross with so much whip on. He's not even really in a crossing position, but he manages to turn it into a cross, and Lancashire puts it home. He was just offside, apparently. Yeah, exciting times. I guess we will find out more after Saturday's game against Leicester.
You're not back for that, or you are back for that?
I'm back for it, and very annoyingly, I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but very annoyingly, I have to go straight away on a work trip, and my flight from Heathrow is at 3 p.m. on the Saturday, which means the game's, I just can't go to the game, which is really annoying. So I'll be listening in Heathrow Terminal, I think it's Terminal 5. I need to check that as well. Yeah, shame. But I've got my QPR ticket, just bought, and I've bought my Watford ticket.
Anyway, Matt, thank you ever so much for joining us from your poolside. It's back to the pool for you. Got some valuable tanning time.
Danger style.
The pool Banger, yeah. Listeners, don't go anywhere because I've got a really special and interesting guest coming up next.
And I'm very, very much looking forward to hearing this from poolside.
Of course, you can listen to it. You can listen
Exactly
to
that. I might download one and listen to it. Go on.
So, listeners, we've lost one Matt, but we have gained another. We are genuinely blessed as a football club, I think, to have some amazing people who do amazing things for our club. We have the Oxford Kits website, we have Oxblogger, we have the Rage Online database, and we have obviously 5 or 6 excellent podcasts. These are all projects that people do for the love, not the money. And our guest today is one of those unsung heroes, a person whose work makes finding any bit of archive about Oxford United that much easier. Matt Bruce, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what it is that you do that makes me love you so much.
Well, basically, I'm just obviously a fan who's had at various times too much time on my hands and has spent far too much time basically trolling through all sorts of YouTube videos and things like that, trying to kind of put them into some kind of order. I don't know if it's maybe like some sort of like autistic kind of thing, but it's quite nice to like have a big sort of chronological list of as many Oxford United videos on YouTube as possible, so that they're nice and easy to find.
So tell us about your channel. What's it called, and how do people find it? First of all.
So yeah, I think it's OUFC Archive on YouTube, and that is essentially the clues in the name as to what I'm trying to do with it. Really, I've when I find videos, I upload them if they don't already exist. The ones that do get uploaded get sort of all thrown into a playlist. And if you take a look on the channel, you'll see every season is a playlist. Every game is sort of listed chronologically. So if you're looking for a particular game from a particular season, it's quite easy to just kind of scroll through and find them all. It's not comprehensive though. Like if if you find one that's not on the list, please send them over to me, because I'm only one man and I don't spend all of my life on YouTube searching for videos. So yeah.
Like, why did you start doing it? When did you start doing it?
Yeah. So I mean, to be honest, the kind of the origins of that particular project go way back to when I was at uni, and I probably should have been studying, but instead I was kind of, YouTube was relatively new in its infancy, and that was at that time. That was when Oxford would have been in the conference at the time, and people were like ripping sort of BBC South Today videos of the highlights and sticking them on YouTube, and it made it quite easy to watch them. And then people started doing the same thing with older games, and I just found that really interesting, because obviously I'd been going since about the sort of the mid 90s. So, but I'd never really seen any of the kind of the glory days or anything like that. All of a sudden, these videos from the 80s came up, and I'd read about them and I'd heard about them, but this was the first time I think I'd ever seen them. So that was really cool. And then I sort of, it was quite funny, because you'd sort of you'd watch the highlights from our latest embarrassment away to sort of Kiston or something like that, and then next to it you'd be sort of the next suggestion would be like these kind of glory days videos from the 80s. And I just kind of thought, having watched basically all of them at some point, I kind of thought it would be really nice if I had just a list of them somewhere that I could that made them easier to find and sort of index basically. So yeah, the origins of it were basically just me making a big long list in Word. I think eventually I then ended up putting that on like Yellow's forum for a little while, but it's hard work kind of keeping up a list like that when videos get taken down and deleted and things like that all the time. So eventually I just kind of migrated it all over to YouTube, and that's kind of where it is now.
I'm going to say this is probably quite a good time to remind our listeners that we also do this podcast in video too, and that's on YouTube. And Matt and I are going to be digging up some of our favourite videos from YouTube in this podcast. So if you do want to have a watch at what we're watching, please take a watch of our YouTube recording of this, which is You Are My Oxford on YouTube. But obviously, for those people who are just listening to the podcast, we will try and describe what we're seeing as well. We should also say as well that if you like what you're seeing or hearing and you want a bit more, we're only going to show little clips from the videos that we're talking about, because obviously we want people who put the videos onto YouTube to get the credit for them. So we're just going to use little clips. So if you want to see more of the videos that we are talking about, we'll put the links on our YouTube page. All right, so Matt, we're going to talk about and we're going to show some of our favourite bits of video. Obviously, all the big moments are there. All our Wembley appearances are there. There's some really, really super amazing old footage. Where does your archive begin? What's the first Oxford United video to your knowledge?
I think the oldest one that I know of that's on YouTube is actually not an Oxford United video, but from the old Headington United days. I think there's one from 1954. I think it's an FA Cup clash that got kind of picked up by kind of one of those old newsreel kind of things. That's the oldest that I can find. I'd be surprised if there was older video actually out there, but 1954 I think is the answer.
Yes, it's this incredible footage. It's Oxford United against Bolton, ironically, a team who we've obviously had much more recent history with. Headington United lost 4-2. I'm not going to show too much of it, Matt, just because I'm slightly worried about copyright. This belongs to Pathé, who are quite strict on these things. It is, though, an incredible piece of video. And the amazing thing for me is seeing the Manor Ground back in the 1950s. And you kind of see the shape of it, and it still looks kind of a bit like the Manor Ground that we said goodbye to in 2000.
Yeah, it's all very non-league though, isn't it? And that's kind of one of the things that's so cool about this, because if you cast your mind back to the last time we played Bolton, that was a big showpiece occasion at Wembley on like level terms. But back then, the gap between the two clubs was huge. It was quite a big occasion to have a team like that come down to the Manor, I think, back then.
It's a fabulous bit of video. There's also a couple of other bits of 1960s video. The two famous cup ties against, is it Blackburn and Preston, which are available in the archive.
And that's a really cool one as well, because the club had just come into the Football League last, and been in the Football League for a couple of years. There was still a little bit of a novelty factor, I think, around the club. And then obviously they had this crazy FA Cup run. I think were they like the first Division 4 team to get to the quarterfinals or something crazy like that. And I think that kind of really built Oxford's reputation at the time, and actually probably had quite a big sort of knock-on impact, like locally as well, in terms of just like legitimizing this sort of new professional club. Really, I think would have been them.
Let's move on. The joy, as you mentioned, the joy for me though of YouTube is seeing all this 1980s stuff. Because I kind of missed out on it. I didn't start going until the kind of mid to late 80s. So seeing all the kind of 1984 games, all the ones I'd read about in Rags to Riches and so on, it's all on there. There's something that I particularly love though, and it's in the build-up to the League Cup fixture we had against Manchester United, the one that went to three replays, wasn't it? I think it went to. There's an incredible piece that BBC Breakfast did where the reporter at the time, who's David Icke, who's now a conspiracy theorist and alien believer, he's also a former Oxford United goalkeeper, believe it or not. He was in our youth and reserve teams. He came back to Oxford and played in goal in the training session. This is on YouTube. Let me just play a clip from it because it is that good.
During their last major training session before the big game, Oxford had a new young goalkeeper on view. And I must say, he showed a lot of promise.
Well done, Jonah. Get your shots in. Get your shots in. Come on. Jonah. Here. Give it in. Well done. Well done, Jonah.
But on second thoughts, I reckon they can probably take on Manchester United without him. And as long as he doesn't play tonight, the club and its fans feel they have a fine chance of beating Manchester United for what would be the greatest victory in the club's history.
Again, just like amazing access to see, like, you know, but just the BBC getting so close to the club to go to a training session, to put a reporter actually in goal. Yeah, just amazing stuff that we used to get in those days.
And it's a look behind the scenes also of that sort of, you know, Jim Smith era as well, which is probably, you know, the most exciting time to have been there and sort of seen behind the curtain a little bit. I probably would be as interested in watching sort of behind the scenes training footage of the kind of the Graham Ricks era or something like that.
Funny, when Jim Smith came back, I was working at BBC Sport at the time, and I did quite a lot of filming around the club at the time. I pitched a series to BBC News in our first year in the conference to do some filming behind the scenes, and that basically allowed me to go to training sessions every so often, and I would film Jim Smith with a microphone on. And I have to say, BBC did really rather well to not get him effing and blinding, which is it's so difficult to edit all the training shots we used to get, because you just hear him in the background going, "Hargreaves, you fucking..." Anyway, excellent. I guess we have to talk 1986. Knowing the age of our demographic on this particular podcast, I know a lot of our audience know the entire game is on there with all the pre-match chat and the celebrity football match and so on beforehand. What do you remember of that day? Or were you even born then, Matt? I'm trying to work out how old you are.
I wasn't born, so I don't have any memories of it. That is literally my memory of it, is watching it back on YouTube, or I even had it on, they released it on DVD, didn't they, at the club a little while back, and I had that, and that was kind of, again, sort of my introduction to all of that. But yeah, that sort of footage, again, it's just like the way that like cup finals were covered at the time. I even though I don't really, you know, I sort of, we had a little bit of it in the 90s when I was a kid growing up. Like, we never really got any of that, but you just get a bit of a feel of the kind of the nostalgia of the occasion, because it was a proper occasion then. It wasn't just another game. They sort of treat it sort of as something special. It sort of transcended football a little bit. I quite like that about it.
Yeah, I think people, you know, especially now when, you know, most games are hidden away on Sky or whatever, people don't realise quite what a big event the cup finals were. Even the League Cup final, which has never been as big as the FA Cup final, it was a major event. You know, the coverage started, you know, a good kind of hour or so before the game. They would have endless chit chat. They'd have guests. You know, it was a real big showpiece event, which we won. It was extraordinary. This was my first ever game that I watched Oxford United live. I say live, I watched it on TV, but it was this was the first time Oxford United had ever been live on television. It was just amazing watching this team that I kind of knew a little bit about at the time and seeing them on telly and playing so well.
How could you not fall in love with them after that?
Indeed. I started going the following year. I am the original glory hunter. So how many times do you reckon you've watched that back, Matt, that particular game?
I don't know. I can't count. I probably do watch it, maybe not all the way through. I probably dig out the highlights though at least once a year, and then every now and then it's quite a good thing to have on in the background. I think I find sometimes put the whole match on and just sort of it makes quite a nice sort of soundtrack to whatever I happen to be doing at the time.
There's some amazing footage as well, which I've dug up. This is from the local news reports the next day, Matt. So this is I think this is BBC One or ITV local news. And this is of the victory parade and various other bits of footage. So there's the victory parade where it's absolutely tipping down with rain. We've got also incredible footage of David Langan drinking milk in the tunnel after the game, because obviously it was the milk cup and somebody shoved a bottle of milk into his hand. We've got the players playing cards, I think on the way back to Oxford. It's just this kind of incredible kind of footage and access that you just may or may not have seen before. There's also a real funny clip of Malcolm Shotton wearing what looks like a kind of a Flasher's raincoat. Here we go. Absolutely. This is obviously the days before kind of media training, and he just looks so uncomfortable in front of the camera. It's obviously tipping down with rain. Absolutely amazing stuff. I'll put the link in the bio, and you can have a look. But yeah, some really, really lovely footage. A different era, Matt. Everything just looks so different.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's like another world. And I suppose, you know, the more time goes on, the more you kind of notice those things. I think I've found it even more disconcerting is because for me, that was before I was born. It is another world to me, but I find it quite disconcerting looking back on videos from just 20 years ago when I remember that time, but I don't remember it quite seeming that sort of different to how things are now. That's one of the things I quite like about looking back on those old videos like that, is you do kind of realize it does sort of put things into contrast with how things are today, and then you realize how things have changed. That's completely different, sort of different world and different culture as well. I think the football itself has changed, and the culture of you know that playing squad sort of culture, I think has changed so much. It'd be really interesting to kind of get one of the players of today to see that video and see how much they recognize from their own sort of travels on the team coach and so on, and see what's the same and what's different.
Oh, brilliant idea. Can you imagine sitting down with Cameron Browning or someone just making them watch 1986? And maybe we could show this next clip as well, which is this is one of my, I've talked about this game before, it's one of my almost favourite games, but in a really kind of perverse way. I went to this game. This was the 7-4 defeat to Luton Town in our last season in the top division. It was an extraordinary game. Away fans were banned, but I somehow managed to sneak into the game. It's the whole match is there on YouTube if you can bear to sit through this kind of absolute shit show of a performance. But the beauty of the video on YouTube is that it's all in Norwegian. Let me just play a little bit of it.
Här är Kenilworth Road.
Almost like a kind of a Eurovision Song Contest style, and the commentator just chats away the whole way through. At half time, they cut to lottery numbers and all sorts of other things. We got a funny horse race with carts. This is all during the halftime break. We've got a funny man in a jumper who's reading out the skiing results. It's absolutely classic Norwegian 1980s TV, mixed in with 90 minutes of Oxford being absolutely trounced 7-4 on a plastic pitch with no away fans apart from me and about 5 others in there. The whole game's on there. It is well worth watch just for the comedy value. I don't suppose you have any recollection of that at all. Have you ever sat through that particular recording? Wow.
I don't think I've ever put myself through it. I've definitely seen the highlights of it, and I mean, like a crazy game. I think it was a crazy time. We've had some real weird games, haven't we, against Luton? I think that's a club we've got a particularly weird kind of history with. Like, there seems to be times when obviously we seem to always end up in the same league as them. We seem to always be competing for the same thing as them. Even last season, obviously, both kind of fighting against relegation. There's definitely a weird sense that there's two clubs who have bounced up and down the league quite a bit. We've definitely crossed paths with them. It seems like more than most.
Matt, the next clip we're going to show is one that you sent me this morning. And it's one, funny enough, I watched not very long ago, because I, like you, spend a lot of time kind of looking at old games on YouTube. And I watched this without noticing the interesting thing about it. It's the West Ham game of 1992-3, I think. Yeah. A game that I was at. And it was a brilliant game of football. But tell me, why is it so interesting, Matt?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I mean, it is actually quite a good game of football, thankfully. But I think the football itself is not even the thing that's kind of notable about this video. This, by the way, is the most viewed video by far on the whole of my channel. It's got something like 200,000 views or something crazy like that. And the story behind that, the reason for it is kind of silly, and it says more about like internet culture than it does about Oxford United, to be honest. But if you remember that old story from the 90s, that this was the kind of the era when Harry Redknapp was manager of West Ham, and there was a time when he was being berated by a fan behind him, lost his rag with him, pulled him out of the stands and put him on the pitch. And this fan ended up going on and scoring a goal in the game. Well, this match here is not that match, but about 200,000 people seem to think it is. So people just keep coming on and watching it and are looking for this fan everywhere. I don't know what they think they're going to find, but yeah, wrong match, wrong team.
It's so funny. When I was watching back, I didn't notice I think it's 228,000 views it's got, and I didn't notice that at all. And then when you sent it to me, I looked again and said, oh my God, yeah, 228,000 views. You've great for your monetization. You must be living.
If I monetized it, yeah, yeah. I don't think I even I could bring myself to kind of monetize that kind of stupidity.
There's another really funny clip, which is Oxford's 1-1 draw with Mansfield from the 2016 season. It's a really bland 1-1 draw. Kemal Roof got a penalty for us. There's a bad foul in it. But that's about all that happens in the highlights. And that video has 268,000 views. And if you look at all the comments, it's all Brazilians talking about it. So someone somewhere in Brazil has said, oh, look at this terrible foul. And it's quite a bad foul on Callum O'Dowda. And obviously all of Brazil has watched it. And there's a huge spike in the kind of, you can see where people are watching in the video. And that's the precise moment that Callum O'Dowda has found. 268,000 views on an Oxford United versus Mansfield 1-1 draw. Quite remarkable how the internet does these funny things. I guess we're going chronologically. We've got, after 1992, the next point of interest would be 1996. Are you alive at this point? Are you starting to take an interest in Oxford United?
This was the point for me. That this is when I first started going. And my very first game actually was the game against Blackpool. Which again, a bit similar to how your first sort of live experience with Oxford was a real kind of high watermark. Same thing with me. I think there's probably a pattern here. I think there's a few other people. I was listening to, sorry to bring up a rival, but I was listening to the dub the other day, and I think it was George Ellick on there was saying that was his first game, and I reckon there's probably a few of us. And just like with the Milk Cup final, like if that's your first experience of Oxford, how could you not fall in love with that? You know, that kind of sold out manor ground that's kind of rocking and wonder goals from Joey Beauchamp. Like, how can you not fall in love with that?
There's a few things about that season. Obviously, there's the season-long highlights video, which is brilliant, you know. And when I was at university around that time, that was absolutely 100% the thing that I would watch all the time, late at night, whilst doing whatever students do, that kind of stuff. But yeah, always watching that video. There's a few gripes I have with that video. First of all, it's the Blackpool game, because the only thing you see from that absolutely pivotal game of the season is the goal. There's no other highlights at all. It's just the goal, and obviously it's a great goal. Second is the Crewe game at the end of that season, which we won 2-1 away from, which is the greatest game of football I think I've ever seen live. It was so exciting. And they've done a real basic edit of it. They've missed out the Crewe scored a indirect free kick directly with about 10 minutes to go. Stuart Massey got sent off. All sorts of amazing things happen that just don't get shown in the highlights package, which is a real shame. But still, that season's video is just amazing. Totally and utterly amazing.
It's the scenes of the celebrations after the kind of the promotion game, the last game of the season. Again, another one that I just go back to again and again and again, just because like the to sort of relive that feeling of joy. I think every now and then when you've had like a particularly humbling defeat, it's quite nice to sort of remember the good days a little bit.
We've had the good days then of 96, 2006, just a mere 10 years later, probably the darkest actual day in our club's history when we got relegated from the Football League. Anything on your YouTube archive about that particular day? I don't want to talk about it too much because it still hurts.
There are a few bits. There's I can't remember who it was now. Not that long ago, somebody dug out some old news footage from all across that season, which actually before was one of the ones that there were like 2 or 3 games only that I could find on YouTube from that season. One of which is the game with Leyton Orient commentary as well, which is not. I don't recommend watching. I have watched it. Don't recommend it. But yeah, someone actually dug out a bunch more footage from it from that season, and there's some great old archive news footage of the takeover. So there's Kassam leaving the stadium for the last time, and Nick Merry and Jim Smith kind of arriving, and all of this kind of hope and jubilation, which obviously, as we know, weeks later, kind of was kind of reversed. I've only ever uploaded one video from that season, where somehow, many years ago, I found a DVD of the full match of I think it was a 1-0 defeat away at Boston United, and I sat through the whole of that. It wasn't much fun, but I sat through it and kind of clipped it down to like sort of 10 minutes of highlights, because somebody got to. And I think, having spent hours doing that, I think now, about a decade after it was uploaded, it's got to about 200 views. So, time well spent.
I mean, that season is, I mean, we can look back at it now and we look at where we are as a club, but that season was a car crash in slow motion. I can pinpoint the exact moment I realised we were in deep trouble, which is when we lost at Wickham, I think it was. And I think we lost 3-1. We were dreadful that day. And it was just really abundantly clear that we were just in deep trouble. And just all the other, I guess the things you can't see on videos, just all the other weird results that happened that year. Chester were dead and buried, and then won like 8 or 9 games in a row. Torquay were dead and buried, and won 8 or 9 games in a row. Stockport were dead and buried, and won 8 or 9 games. It's just this weird thing, and we're like, oh my god, we're in trouble. And then obviously got to
it was that growing realization that we might actually go down here. I remember the game from that season I always come back to was it was not the very final game of the season, but the one before that, away to Wrexham. And I just remember, I think Dennis Smith was their manager at the time, and he basically put out a reserve team to kind of give us a chance. Their season was over, and we still couldn't beat them. And I think coming out of that game, I remember sort of going through the maths in my head and thinking, oh, we're doomed. We are absolutely doomed. And a Wrexham fan came up to me and was like, see, you weren't so bad today. You'll be fine. Told you you'd be fine. And I'm like, we're about to go down. What's going on? Yeah, real dark days. Yeah.
I was there as well. There was an amazing report, actually, a proper, really good kind of multi-camera report on the game from ITV, which I might edit some of it onto this video. It's such a weird day. And as you say, Dennis Smith did everything he could to keep us up. He stuck out the kids, and we were just so terrible, we couldn't do anything about it at all. Enough of that, because it actually... believe it or not, things did get worse. And I was trying to think the other day of what the worst moment was, where we actually hit the absolute bottom. Because when we did get relegated from the Football League, there was this feeling we were going to bounce back. And then obviously we didn't bounce back. We messed up in the playoffs the following year. And then we had 2 seasons of absolute drudge. And I was trying to think about what the worst moment was. And Droylsden came to mind, where we lost 3-1 at Droylsden on Setanta. But then I actually thought, no, it did get worse. And there's one particular moment that I think is the lowest point in the history of our club. And that was in the 5-0 defeat away at Rushden and Diamonds in the conference. And one particular moment, which I spent ages on the internet trying to find the other day, and I did find a whole recording of the game, and it's this moment. This is Phil Trainor's free kick at 4-0 down against Rushden and Diamonds. It's in a perfect position, and he runs up and he just slices it straight into the stand behind the goal, and it's just that bad. Did you watch that one?
That is that team. Yeah, I did watch that one. So that was, I think it was on live on, was it like Setanta Sport or something like that at the time? So I, like pretty much every sane individual, I didn't have a subscription to Setanta Sport. And the only place that I knew that did have one was like the David Lloyd Leisure Centre or something weird like that. So I remember watching that game. My dad had a gym membership, and I went to like the lobby of this gym to watch that game. And I think that was the moment that we sort of gave up and left eventually. We tried to stick it out, but I think that was too much England for me.
It took some finding, but it was worth it, and it was just as bad as I remembered. So that's always quite pleasing. That was the lowest point. We then started climbing up again. In 2010, obviously, we win at Wembley. This is a fascinating game for me because this is the first time that people really had a good moment in Oxford United's history to record on smartphones. So it's the first game where you actually see, especially the Alfie Potter goal, you can see it from lots and lots and lots of different angles. And it's also the era where people started to make their own content as well. And famously, U-Man did his incredible song, which I'm going to play a little bit of here, which you said you knew off by heart. You're going to sing along?
I'm a U-Man, because I'm a U's fan, and it's true, man. I don't give a damn, because the team we're playing yellow are the best.
U-Man. I mean, that day, the whole day at Wembley, the song, everything, it was like falling back in love again with the whole club. It was like we've been through these terrible dark times, and everything about the build up to that week, starting with the victory over Rushden, then obviously going to Wembley, seeing all your friends, seeing loads of people you haven't seen in ages, the excitement of people making stuff like U-Man and his song, it just suddenly felt like a real moment. And then obviously the day itself. Any favourite videos from 2010?
There are so many videos from that game particularly, but that season as well. As you say, like that whole season was a bit of a rebirth of the club and like the supporter culture around it as well. I always think of that sort of 4 years in non-league as a bit of a time of like kind of purging some of the stuff that had come before, and actually all of the fans really sort of, you were left with just the hardcore, and all of the fans kind of came together. And I kind of think that a lot of the stuff as a group of supporters, I kind of think that a lot of the kind of the culture that has kind of carried us through to this day was sort of born at that sort of time. So yeah, definitely. But going back to your actual question, favorite videos from that. There's obviously some. I actually do prefer watching back some of the camera phone videos of that Potter goal, because they do kind of take you back into the moment more than I think the kind of the pro shot footage is concerned. So yeah, I still dig all of those out. And I mean, I've got to also give a shout out to, it was super viral at the time, but going back to earlier in that season when we played Luton at home, where we missed a penalty, all of their fans went wild, and then about sort of a minute later, Constable, I think it was, puts the ball in the back of their net, and of course it went viral at the time. It was one of the first sort of viral Oxford videos, I think, of that moment from the Luton end. And again, that's one that I think I like to go back to every now and then.
Brilliant. I'm going to edit that one on for our YouTube viewers. So much great stuff. We could literally talk forever and ever and ever about all the videos since then as we've climbed up through the leagues. Any particular personal favourite thing that you've got on YouTube? Any like goal, for instance, not necessarily from a promotion game, just any particular like moment or goal that you often find yourself watching again and again?
There's quite a few. I suppose there's, we've got kind of, everyone's got their kind of favorite players, I suppose, and favorite, even like, odd sort of moments if they tie into something like personal or something like that. I think one of the ones that I really like is it's Andy Wing's goal against Rochdale in, I don't know when it would have been, like 2013. Everything about it sounds so unglamorous. It's Andy Wing. It's a sort of a damp squib end of season game against Rochdale, and it is the last place you would expect to see like a moment of like sensational generational quality. But the goal he scored that day is one of the best goals I think an Oxford player has ever scored. This kind of acrobatic overhead scissor kick, and it's like kind of thing that maybe in days past, you'd have sort of heard a little bit about, and it would be a little bit of an urban legend. But we have video evidence of it now, so it's still on YouTube. And I go back to that one quite a lot, just because I still kind of can't believe that he scored that goal. So yeah, that's the one. That is probably the one that sticks out most in my mind. If I think of like random, meaningless goals that kind of I keep going back to.
It was a beauty. And on the subject of overhead volleys, I have a message from one of our celebrity fans, George Ellick, who's been on the search for Mark Rule's overhead kick, which was even better than Andy Wing's, against Cambridge United away in 2003. I have searched everywhere for this because I have seen it on YouTube before, but I cannot find it for love nor money. I've got contact at Sky who I've asked, and they haven't got back to me. I even contacted Mark Rule today on Facebook. I looked on Facebook and said, "You must have a copy." He said, "No, I'm desperate to find it." How are we going to find Mark Rule's overhead scissor kick against Cambridge United in November 2003?
That's a good question. Well, now's probably the time to put the call out. I think collectively, someone out there listening to this has got to have a copy of that video somewhere. Because also, this was the era when, like, there must be a video of it somewhere. So yeah, I would like to see this.
I have asked Sky before, and they've not been able to find it, which is infuriating because they're normally really good at stuff. They really helped me when I was doing the Joey Beauchamp video of all of Joey Beauchamp's goals. Sky were really helpful with that, but they have not been able to find Mark Rule's goal. It was even on Soccer AM as goal of the month for November 2003.
Wow,
so
must have been a good one. I don't remember it at all.
It was a beauty. I think it was possibly even last minute to win the game as well. He was right on the edge of the penalty area. Have you seen the Matt Murphy one against Cardiff that I managed to get hold of a while ago?
Yes.
Very similar to that. It's like a scissor kick on the edge of the area, and it like flies right into the top corner to everyone's amazement. Yeah, not there.
I was going to say, there probably weren't too many Mark Rule highlights, really. It wasn't a golden era of the club, was it? So yeah, it would be nice to have a moment from that sort of time to kind of pick out as a real highlight.
You wouldn't want to be a striker in an Ian Atkins team. In the same way, it's probably not much fun playing up front in a Gary Rowett team. It probably wasn't much fun playing up front in a Ian Atkins team who was feeding on minimal scraps. So
yeah, it would have been tough. A good time to be a penalty taker, though. Unlike now. So there's that.
Very true. So a few more questions. How do you go about finding goals? Games, moments, what is there a trick to it? How do you do it?
Honestly, I would love to. This is a question I would like to ask you, to this, because I don't really have access to I don't have contacts at Sky or BBC or things like that. In my case, pretty much all of the videos that I've uploaded, some were kind of a case of I found all of the old. Someone was selling all of the old season review videos from the 90s. That was how I first started uploading things to YouTube, was that somebody was selling them on eBay, and they happened to include they burned it to a DVD, so they happened to include that with it. And so knowing that I had that, and knowing that it wasn't on YouTube, that was what first sort of inspired me to put it onto YouTube, and I knew that it would be there. And then after that, it's just been a case of wherever I can find them. So it has been, I found a bunch, like collectors were selling them on eBay for a little while. Some of them were kind of housed on like obscure websites that I kind of managed to sort of crib them from. Sometimes it's kind of a case of, one of the things I plan to start doing actually is backing up backing up sort of videos that are already on YouTube, because they don't always stay forever. And there are some games that used to be on there, and I've gone back to go and find again, and are gone, and I have no way of getting them back. So I'm going to start backing up all of these old videos so that I can kind of re-upload them, and that will probably be make up a significant amount probably of future uploads if I ever get around to it.
One of the things I did when I was doing the Joey Beauchamp compilation video of all of his goals was I would go to, there's a few, for instance, like Wrexham, where he scored against Wrexham, and I couldn't find it anywhere on any kind of Oxford United video. but I went and I found the Wrexham season review video that somebody posted on. So they obviously had all the goals of Wrexham season, and I went through, and lo and behold, there was Joey Beauchamp's. So yes, I mean that's one other way of doing stuff.
Yeah.
Here's another question for you. What do you wish was on YouTube but isn't?
There's so many. I mean, I would love to see more of the kind of the really old stuff, but I don't think any of those games were ever videos, so they just lost the time. I think there's one game that I didn't even know. I have spent a sad amount of time kind of going through like old archives of like the big match from when they, because someone out there, there are anoraks out there who have made lists of all of the games they were ever covered on Match of the Day back in the 60s and 70s, and the big match and things like that. And you can pretty much sort of search through there to see when Oxford were featured on any of those. And so you can kind of, that was basically the only time back in those days anyone ever recorded an Oxford game. So you can pretty much make a list of all of the times that Oxford games have been videoed. But I found one that somebody uploaded one, I should say, to YouTube that was not on any of these lists, and I don't really know where it came from. And I cannot actually remember which game it was now, but it was from, I think, the 62-63 season. So Oxford's first season in the Football League. There was a decent sort of pro shot video from a random game that season. They got uploaded to YouTube. It was like a good quality picture as well, and I freaked out when I saw it in a way that only like a kind of a real kind of loser would do about like a 60-year-old football match. But yeah, immediately added it to the archive. I think I sort of tweeted about it and was like, guys, you're not going to believe this amazing video that's out there. And about 2 months later, it was gone. And I just don't know if it'll ever come back. So that is the one. If I can ever get hold of it, that's the one. Can't even remember which game it was now. But yeah, if I can ever get hold of that, just because it's such a rare find to have video from that sort of era, that's what I'd like to do.
My one regret on YouTube is that the last game at the Manor Ground wasn't covered properly. We have, if you search, and it's on your YouTube, there is a little bit of BBC News footage that they filmed before the game, but obviously for rights issues, they weren't allowed to film during the game. So there's a little bit of kind of the fireworks. There's a bit of Firoz Kassam on the pitch. There's a few people saying, "Oh, we're going to miss this place." But I remember that game so vividly. I remember all the chants and the singing, and we spent the entire game singing songs about former players, good and bad, and none of that exists anywhere. Not even the goals exist anywhere, and that's a real shame. Sky will have them somewhere.
There is one amazing video from that game. I think it's from that game. It's from one of the games right towards the end of the Manor's life. That is not professionally filmed. It's not even match footage, but someone pre kind of smartphone had taken a camcorder and filmed their walk to the ground and filmed inside the London Road. It really, really is an incredible, just what's the word I'm looking for? Like, almost like a screenshot of that era. You kind of it's not even about the football. It's about the kind of the fans and the kind of the culture that they were able to capture. Love that video. Very sort of grainy, shaky footage. Just as I say, just somebody with a camcorder. But yeah, it's on YouTube. It's not in the archive because it's not pro shot and all of that. But it is well worth watching. It's one of my favorite videos.
It is amazing. It's kind of like watching the Blair Witch Project. It's so badly filmed.
Yeah.
And it's like really wobbly, but they go into the club shop and all sorts, don't they? And yeah, they go into the club shop, then they walk up the London Road passage. Yeah, it's totally amazing. Matt, what a pleasure. What a great way to spend 50 minutes chatting about some amazing moments. Remind listeners where they can find your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's OUFC Archive on YouTube. And as I say, if you've got any videos that aren't out there anywhere, please send them my way. I am trying to kind of preserve as much of that stuff as possible and make it as accessible as possible. So yeah, please do.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for sticking with it, and thank you so much for doing the incredible archive. As I said at the start, you're one of the people that makes being an Oxford fan much more enjoyable, I think. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and thanks for having me on. It was really fun.
The big man with a big goal
I've got to mention John Narbet. We've been mentioning John Narbet,
Okay.
so I'm going to record every episode we've mentioned him. It's just like our little joke. So, any good clips of John Narbet that you can think of out there?
Well, no, I can't think of any. Sorry.